All right, we're going to look at my first wedding ever, and this is back in 2004. I was shooting with a Canon 10D, and then also my wife shot this with me with a Canon Pro 1, which was a prosumer camera, which was kind of awesome, but it also only had one lens and it didn't have, a really wide aperture. And so we were going into this fairly limited. At the time, there was no Lightroom, so the editing had to be done one by one. At least I only knew how to do it one by one at that point. And we start off, I guess, this got us a lot of other business. So I guess if you look at it, like it was a success because we were able to kind of springboard, not even meaning to. We never thought we would do weddings. We really took this and people hired us based on the photos that we gave them, which is pretty awesome. But when we look back now, there's a lot of lessons that I could have learned. So one of the first things that I know is that the photos weren't synced. And that was one of the first lessons I figured out because the first set of photos are all my wife's, and they were all on a totally different timestamp than later on. You'll see the same series of the day that were time stamped in a different, totally different time. I think it was a different day even, in a different time of day. So when I was editing these, they were really hard to go through because I had to manually sort them together. And I was not knowledgeable enough at the time to know that you could change the timestamps and all that stuff. But I don't even know. Back then, I'm sure there was a way, but I had no idea how to do it. Now you can do that now a little bit easier, but back then, I had nothing synced, so when we were editing things, like something from the same time space, was hard to measure which ones to keep because then my wife also had the same portraits at the same time, and so it was hard to go and edit that. I remember being frustrated with that. So make sure that you are syncing your cameras to the time. Another thing that you could see pretty quickly is that we gave them. These are the final edits, by the way. This is what I gave the client. 1,626 photos. I don't think we shot all that much more than this. I think if we did, it was like maybe 300 or 400 more. And I remember we were in panic mode a lot of the times because we were just going and saturating and shooting and taking pictures of everything because we really, at that point, it was in 2004 and I had no idea. I knew shutter, aperture, and ISO, but I wasn't able to really, I didn't have a lot of practice in the field. And wedding photography is a lot different as far as if you're taking landscapes or even photos of your family. The pressure's not there because it's not a once in a lifetime event. But doing a wedding is, there's a lot of pressure there. So changing your settings appropriately and quickly, depending on the lighting situations, is very important. You can't trust program mode. Program mode, automatic mode will give you something like that where it's flat and it's gray, right? This photo's not very good anyway. It's not composed well, but it was also, we were just trying to learn as we went, and this would be something I probably would not give a client today, right? But yeah, automatic mode doesn't give you really a lot of punch. So like this photo is one that we gave them, and just one quick look at it, the lighting is off and the exposure is off. If I would have just done a quick edit back in the day, just even like that, it's probably a million times better already. All right, but we did not give them that. We gave them that, so that's okay. Yeah, we were learning, and honestly, it's one of those things. The client loved it. Minda's the bride. She was amazing, and she loved the photos, and a lot of the people that saw the photos loved them, and that's where we got a lot of business. So we gave them too many photos. One of the things to be careful of when you're a wedding photographer is not giving too many photos because your worst photos will take away from your better ones. So when I look at, for instance, these two photos, this one is absolutely 100% a lot better than the other one. If I were to make this a little bit brighter, and we recover little highlights, that's a million times better. She's got a great expression. This one's actually well composed. Could have been cropped maybe a little bit, but it's a decent photo, right? You can see it's a behind the scenes photo. It would still need a little bit of editing, but it's pretty decent. This is bad though. Blurry, not even nearly, the faces are not nearly as good. And this one is also bad, and it's also really crooked. right? It's on a big slant, which is also one of those things you want to try to avoid. You want to make sure that you level things up sometimes. Slants could be okay every once in a while, but not as often as we did them, and we did them a lot. You can see a lot of them. So like what I was saying though is like you want to make sure that you're keeping your best and deleting the similar photos that are bad. And out of those shots right there, it's very easy to see that one is the one that we should have kept, and that's the only one we should have kept from that spot, right? From that angle and everything. And you could see that throughout all of our photographs. We have a lot of repeats. For instance, this one's a really good one. You know, it's boosted up a little bit. That's too bright, but I don't have the raw files anymore, or I do somewhere, but I'm not going to get them out. You have a better photograph, and then when you look at this one, it's flat, and their faces are not nearly as good. And we even gave them a color and a black and white version. Somehow I thought that was good enough to give them two versions of. Holy cow. So yeah, you need to, edit a little bit more lethally and give them less photographs. I'd say, this was a 8 or 9 hour wedding. I can't remember, maybe even 10 hours, but we gave them way too many photos, and you just don't need to give them that many. When you're going through the album though, or this gallery, you could see that we have moments where we did pretty decent. And like I kind of like that one. It's a serious one, but it's pretty cool. Behind the shoulders shots, this is my wife's work. Like I like that one quite a bit. And you could see some moments, like if we were a better editor back then, where we could have had a much better gallery. But we let the gallery be saturated with photos that didn't matter or photos that weren't very good. And then a lot of slants. I mean, this photo is a hard delete. The focus is on the basket back there. You can't even see half her face. It's slanted like crazy. Not one that we should have kept. And one that's understandable that we would take, but not that we should have kept. Anyway, going through the wedding, we can look at, we did a lot of behind the scenes, which is cool. We were still, even our very first wedding, we were trying to tell the story. And we were trying to get emotion, and you could see us working on that. The lighting was really harsh. We had problems and weren't exactly sure how to deal with that lighting all the time because we were a little bit newer in our photography, and we struggled with that a little bit. But we got a lot of details. We got behind the scenes. We did our best. I mean, that first wedding we had, it doesn't get much harsher light than this. I don't think it does get much harsher than this. So it was hard, but it was also a lot of light. So we were able to get, a lot of shots that would have been a struggle in dim light, for instance. But we didn't know how to expose correctly all the time. This is underexposed. It's kind of exposed for the background. And I think that's a process of sometimes our cameras were set on auto mode. So when we look through this, you could see that we weren't very confident. Now, these are my wife's sets, and let me get to mine. This is hers all the way through the reception. And then when we go to, these are mine. You can see because I'm with the guys at the beginning. Oh yeah, we were trying some cool depth of field effects. Yeah, so these are mine. And I think the guys actually weren't around that much at that point. They were just hanging out. There's the groom. Underexposed, right? Look at these underexposed shots. If I would have just been a better editor and given them, I mean, even if the color's not right, I would take more time to get the color right. But, I gave them that and just a quick little edit, and I got that, right? So we didn't know how to edit. I wasn't sure what I was doing, and luckily they still loved it. So we showed a lot of promise, and we went through and we told the story, got the details. I mean, look at that exposure. A quick edit, guys, changes everything, right? That's too much. A bit like that. Very cool. Look at the old cameras didn't do very well. Even at ISO 200, it looks a little grainy in the background. They still did pretty well though, for what they were. Details, the key players, the actors, not actors, the family. We got the dogs. You could see promise in what we did and that we were trying to tell a story. And that is our biggest strength throughout our wedding career. But, why is this one crooked? Why did I choose to do this crooked? I have no idea. I no clue at all. And I wasn't trying to tell a story because I don't think I knew how to tell a story. I was still struggling, like that's just so crooked for no reason. I think I wanted to get the grandparents in there. I don't know, but stable, clean, composed shots are better. It was really hot this day, and the groom struggled to maintain his ability to stand at times. But we did get some good shots. We got some cute, like, look at that. That's really cool. We did pretty well here and there. I mean, look at that edit right there. So I gave the client that, and within 3 seconds I got him that. I'd probably crop it a little bit closer. That is a great, cute little shot, right? So you can see I was working it. I was between shoulders. It was the foundations of a decent wedding career, I think. Holding hands. But you can see that at times then we would struggle very much in the reception. It was dark. We were using straight on flash at times. The lighting was something that we didn't know how to balance. And we also just took too many photos at with a slanted angle, and too many underexposed shots that would then lend to grain. If you boosted up everything, I'd have to work on the skin tones a lot. But that's what I gave them. And then within like 3 seconds I did that, right? Awkward angles below people and kind of farther away sometimes. But that's a pretty good detail. That's not bad, but I think my shutter speed was slow. It looks a little bit blurry. So let's look at the dancing shots. And this is where I struggled the most. I had no idea what I was doing, and you could tell that. I struggled. Unless I was using my flash, I didn't know at all what I was doing. So I was using a 50 millimeter 1.8. That's the nifty 50, the cheap one for Canon, the plastic one. So number one, I wasn't focusing well because that thing couldn't focus very well. The 10D viewfinder at the time was very dark and very tiny, so it was hard to manually focus as well. So it wouldn't autofocus and it wouldn't manually focus. So I don't remember, but I think the reason I was using f6.3 is because I was terrified of getting things out of focus. Unfortunately, I forgot that I was then dealing with my inability to boost my ISO, because I think I just forgot or didn't know what I was doing. And then it would slow down the shutter. I had to slow down the shutter to 1/6 of a second to get any kind of shot. So yeah, this is not a good shot. This is, it's not very good. So, and I was using a flash at the time, so those shots are a little bit better, but my settings were still off, and I was still introducing too much blur into my photos, even with the flash. And you'll see a lot of these shots are just awkward. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know why that's in there. That's probably an accident. Jeez, I don't know why I gave him some of these. I'm taking the pictures crooked. I don't have any kind of like visual interest sometimes. I struggle to find my way. I'm using a flash in some of these. You can tell that these are a little bit better because the flash is in use instead of the non-flash dark pictures. But I did not know how to color balance. I didn't know how to set my color balance, I think, at the time. So a lot of these are just dark, and I struggled. You could see me struggling. One of these things I could have gotten down on the ground with that kid. I could see things sometimes, but I just wasn't ready with my settings, and I wasn't ready with my focus, and I wasn't ready to truly capture the difficulties of a reception in this kind of environment that I'd be able to easily deal with today. But that was through practice and through trial and error. You can see us trying. I was trying my butt off to try to get these photos, and once again, the client liked them, and I guess that's all that really matters, And I also didn't oversell it. They knew who I was. I taught with her, and I was the photography teacher at the time. I just got hired to teach high school photography, so I was learning photography with the kids. I would tell them, all the students, hey, we're learning together. It was a lot of fun, and we did learn together. But I got better quickly because we started doing a lot of weddings. So I hope you enjoy. I think a couple lessons is to just dive in and do what you can. You know, I think there's a lot of wedding photographers out there that would say, don't ever do that. Go ahead and second shoot first. And I think that's great advice. You know, that's a good photo. I think that's great advice. You should second shoot. You shouldn't be telling clients that you can do a great wedding and then you're not able to deliver when you've barely had experience. But Minda talked me into doing the wedding. She was like, I don't care if you don't know what you're doing. Because I told her I have no idea. And I think they paid us like, I can't remember, $300 or $400. It wasn't, you know, anything. I mean, it was a pretty good, decent amount for my first wedding, I thought, back in the day. And she knew what she was getting, and I told her repeatedly we could find a wedding photographer. She's like, no, I want you there. I want you to do it. And my wife and I did it. And, you know, when you look at a photo like this and a couple other ones, I think we had some good ones. If I were to re-edit this down to like 400 photos, I think that you would have a fairly decent wedding gallery, you know, and if I edited them for brightness and made the photos a little bit better, I think you would have a decent wedding gallery. And I'm kind of proud on some of these, especially, you know, being new and not exactly knowing what I was doing. I think we did a pretty decent job, you know. So yeah, there's some lessons to be learned. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have questions over what I started with or any of the other lessons that I learned during my first wedding, just go ahead and send me a message.